Good evening, everyone. My name is Isabel Cisterna. And first of course, we'd like to thank the organizers, but most of all, I'd like to thank you for coming. Just knowing that people care is very important, and it's a little bit encouraging to see. When we like to talk about poverty and poverty reduction, we have to look at a little bit of the big picture. We are one of the wealthiest parts of the country. We have so much wealth and resources, but yet in Ontario 1.7 million people live in poverty. What we have to look at is how much that poverty costs everybody, not just emotionally, physically, economically. We're looking at, the poverty cost the health system and all of us $70 billion. It's a lot of money when you think about it. If we, studies show day to day that if we invested $1 for every child, we would save 9 later on. It's not unknown that people that live in poverty suffer from greater chances of being chronically ill, suffer ulcers, mental and physical disabilities, mental health problems, and it goes on and on and on. So we have to look at how we can see, all these different barriers that keep people marginalized, because poverty marginalizes people and it isolates them. So we have to look at what happens with, their health, what happens with hunger. Right now it's incredible when you look at the statistics that in Ontario alone we had 400,000 people going to the food banks last year. And in here, according to a study by the Interfaith Social Assistance Reform Coalition, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, 50,000 people used it here in Waterloo region. It's a significant increase in just 1 year. It's a 28% increase. So we have a problem. We have a very big problem, because 30% of those people using the food banks are children. So then we have, to look at the minimum wage. It's nearly impossible for people nowadays to make a living at the minimum wage. They're working 1, 2, sometimes 3 jobs. It's impossible for families right now to have one income if they're working at minimum wage. So you have working parents, and we have created an entire group of people, a new class that is called the working poor. For every one person that you see on the street as homeless, there are 9 more that we don't know. So unless you go to the Out of the Goal program, you wouldn't know that many of your co-workers might be, working and not have a home. So those are the invisible numbers. And in Ontario, those numbers are incredible. They go from 150,000, an average of 150,000 for the ones that we see, to almost 400,000 to the people that we don't. When we look at social assistance, it's true, if you can't live on social assistance alone, if you look at the numbers, it's recognized that a person has to have an income of at least $30,000 to be able to have enough to live, to pay for groceries, to send their kids to school and organize sports. And people who live in social assistance make an average of $7,000. That's kind of criminal, don't you think? When we look at right now the income disparity and jobs, in order for people to work right now, we need to create jobs that are long-lasting. It's this dream of working in one job that pays that is full-time and it has, benefits. It's a dream of many. But we have created an entire economy of part-time and contract work. We're not looking at this whole situation as a holistic approach of many different factors. We're looking at every single item, and it doesn't work that way because we're not looking at the big picture, and we're not looking for a vision. We need to have a vision for the future, or the gap between rich and poor will be even greater. So our plan, because I guess this is the part where we have to say, well, how are we going to do this? First of all, we need everybody engaged, realizing that this is a problem of our entire community, not just of the people who are suffering the problem. We need to raise the minimum wage, at least to $11 per hour. We need to reduce the clawbacks so that people that are receiving assistance can have the dignity of finding a job and at least start somewhere. And that way, perhaps, they will be able to find work that is meaningful and they get out of assistance. We need to take the HST. Yes? My 5 minutes are up? Oh, I'm sorry. I tend to go on, but thank you very much for listening to me.
The question is a statement, but I think all of the candidates could put some input into this. But I would just like to point out two things. That when a Conservative candidate spoke, she mentioned a lot. She sounded really good about how, her concern for people in poverty and people on ODSP and people on OW and the hard time they're having. But I think it needs to be pointed out to everybody in this room that not one of those things that she mentioned is in the Tory platform. Not one of them. And the second thing, the reason that people on social assistance are now in such deep poverty is that when she was a cabinet minister in the Mike Harris government, they froze. They rolled back welfare by 22%, they froze ODSP, and it stayed frozen for 11 years with no increase. And I think that Liz Whitmer is a hypocrite for coming here and talking about how she cares about people in poverty when she froze people for 11 years.
I think that looking at the situation of poverty just from the job creation side of things is a little bit naive. I think the situation needs to be looked at from many different aspects. One of the things that we have to do is invest more in education and prevention. Right now, currently, out of the health budget is such a minimum part that is invested in prevention. And why I'm saying this is because, it's not only that we need to lift the barriers for those people that are marginalized by poverty, but we also have to educate others about it. And the other issue that it hasn't been raised, but I'm sure it will at some point, is the safety issue. The majority of people, and if you look at the statistics, people who live in poverty are less safe, and that safety gap is increasing. So we have to look at that as well. So looking at changing and educating people on poverty issues is a must. We have to educate our young people as well, because they'll have to make some very difficult decisions. With regards to abolishing, many people think that it's a dream to abolish poverty, but my only comment is that it is our duty to work towards ending it. And ending it won't come from just job creation, because not everybody is able to work. And so we have to look at many different ways that we can help in the quality of life of every Ontarian and everybody in our region. To make $116,000 is almost, like winning the lottery. I haven't really given it a lot of thought, as I am working in the arts and culture business, which doesn't pay very much. I have to tell you that in order for us to tackle, you are so right, you are very right. $11 an hour is not sufficient. Even $15 an hour is not sufficient. If we as a party decided that we're going to raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour, or what is the ethical wage, we will have everybody in this room up in arms, because we wouldn't be able to fulfill that promise. And unfortunately, we have to start somewhere. But part of it, and to make life more affordable for people, because it's not just about how you make, it's where the money is spent. If we have HST on basic needs like home, heating, and hydro, that takes away from you. If the cost of living, rent, mortgages, insurance, gas is more expensive than it was years ago, not even that long ago, 2 years ago, then it's taken away from that. If the cost of childcare is prohibitive and there are no spots, then it takes away from that. So we have to look at ways in which we can increase so that we can make that dollar go a little bit farther. Because the situation is that every day the cost of living increases and we're not keeping up with inflation. I hope that answers a little bit of your question, Oscar. But one of the things that we want to do in terms of social assistance particularly, because this is a very important issue to me, as I worked as an interpreter for many years and I used to, okay, I run out of time, sorry. I think what you touched a very emotional part of me, because my father worked for 30 years for the same company, and when the company got sold and bought out, there were hundreds of people that were left without a pension. And because of that, even though my dad had worked as an accountant for several years, now he has to live off the subsidy of his 4 children, and he lives in poverty, and there is no dignity in that. I think your comment had 2 parts to it, and I think the second part to it is a very important part, is that it is very hard right now. For the last 20 years, we have seen a decrease of employment that is good employment, and instead, we're settling for part-time, contract, marginalized jobs that are marginal and temporary. So what we have to concentrate right now is in rewarding job creators. Instead of giving just corporate tax cuts, like a blank check out, in the hopes, asking please create some jobs. What we need to do is reward those people who will create a job for everybody, not just for some, but for every Ontarian, and then give them the incentives so that they can create that kind of work that you need, so that your work doesn't become fluctuation of 3 hours here and 5 hours there, because you can't make a living like that. It's not dignified. So I completely support the idea that we have to put people first, and we can't leave anybody behind. Well, thank you very much for coming. I feel very grateful to be here today. It's our first real debate, and so it actually helps us to be able to tackle all those issues that you brought up, in hopefully in a way that is coherent and intelligent for you, so you have a lot to think about probably after this session. I think that the 3 main issues that I've seen from hearing the entire debate is that we need income security, that we need to tackle the barriers of poverty and marginalization, and then we need to create an environment that brings dignity to everyone. I think those 3 main points were raised over and over again, and that's something that we have to work on. So what I'm asking you is that when you go to vote on October 6th, you choose a party that aligns with the values of working for families, working for you, making life more affordable, reducing the gap between rich and poor, because poverty is at the forefront. It's not just an issue, it's the issue that we have to work on, because it affects us all. And if people don't think they do, maybe they should just look at it from the point of view of how much poverty costs in terms of money, what it costs our society, the physical and emotional barriers that people have to feel when living in poverty, and also because we're all striving for something better. So if I had to agree with everyone here today that this is a very important issue. The difference, and I agree with all my colleagues here, it's not easy to answer some of the questions. It's not that we separate the ideas of what is, if poverty is or isn't important. I think we all agree that it is important. The problem is how we are going to work to reduce it that really matters. So I hope that you understand that October 6th you have to choose the party that will help tackle the problem in the best possible way with a larger vision, not just one single aspect, but every part that creates marginalized poverty.